Welcome to Storytime with Sonia Panda.
Discovers the seasons. Curious was a good little monkey and always very curious. Do you want to hear about the time George's curiosity helped him learn about the seasons? It all started on a cold winter day. The leaves were gone and the grass was brown, but there was not a snowflake in sight. George had to bundle up in his winter coat, but when he got outside, he was not sure what to do. There were no fallen leaves to play in. There were no birds to watch. George had toys for warm days and toys for snowy days, but nothing for just plain cold days. George had an idea. He would visit with the bunnies. But when he went next door, the bunnies were not in their hutch. He found his friend Bill and the bunnies inside. I am going to bring them to my grandmother's house for the winter, George, Bill told him. It's just too cold here to keep the bunnies outside in their house. George was disappointed to see the bunnies go. Then Bill asked him to do a special job. While I'm away, will you feed Jumpy Squirrel for me? He asked. There are not a lot of nuts and seeds around in winter, so it's an important job. George was happy to help. Do you know animals deals with change of season in completely different ways than we do? Some animals hibernate. That means they stay in one place for the winter. They become less active to save their energy for spring. Their heart rates and breathing slow down, and their body temperature drops like when they are sleeping. Other animals migrate or move to warm parts of the world when winter comes. George fed Jumpy, but that took only a minute. He was not sure what to do after that. He looked around his yard and thought about summer. He missed his pool and blowing bubbles. Everything fun seemed to happen in the spring, summer, or fall. Winter was the most boring season. Did you know the earth is divided into two parts called hemisphere? When it is winter in the northern hemisphere, it's summer in the southern hemisphere. The earth turns or orbits around the sun at a tilt. So even if it's snowing where you live in January, people on the other side of the world could still hit the beach. It takes a whole year for the earth to complete its rotation around the sun and for all four seasons to occur. George decided he was not going to let winter ruin his fun. It might not actually be summer, but he could still do summertime things. George got the hose and filled his little pool with water. But when he jumped in, the water was so cold. George got cold too. Brrr. He ran into the house. Soak your feet in warm water to get rid of the chill, the man with the yellow hat said. The warm bath was a lot nicer than the cold pool. George felt much better. Did you know large bodies of water take longer to heat up and cool down than air does? This is why even though the air temperature in the summer can get very hot, the way water in a big lake or ocean is still nice and cool. Did you know there is an imaginary line that runs right through the middle of the planet? It's called the equator. And while the weather can change a lot in the northern and southern hemisphere, that is not the case of the equator because it's almost always near the sun, no matter where the earth is in its rotation. The weather near the equator is almost always warm. The next day it was even colder. George bundled up in his coat and scarf when he went out to play. He wanted to enjoy being outside in the winter as much as he would in other seasons. He sat by his pool to relax. Then George blew some bubbles for Jumpy. But when Jumpy tried to pop a bubble, they discovered that it had frozen. George did not know bubbles could freeze. Did you know water can take the form of solid, a liquid, or a gas? Liquid water starts to freeze and become solid. Ice when the temperature drops below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. Water also begins to boil and turn into a gas called water vapor when it is heated to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius. That was a surprise. George noticed something even more surprising. The water in the pool had frozen. Yesterday's summer fun had turned into today's giant ice cube. George was starting to feel like an ice cube too. He went inside to warm up and drink some hot cocoa. George was puzzled. How could a monkey have any fun outside when everything kept freezing? Suddenly, George had an idea. He could use frozen things to make a game. He filled a balloon and several cartons from the recycling bin with water. Then he brought them outside so they would freeze in the cold air. George did not notice when Jumpy accidentally spilled some seeds and nuts into the cartons of water. The next morning was the coolest day yet. George had to wear a hat, scarf, and coat to stay warm. He did not mind though. He went to check on the balloon and cartons of water he left out the night before. They were frozen solid. George could not wait to set them up for a game of icy winter bowling. When he took the ice from the cartons, though, he realized that some of the Jumpy's nuts and seeds were frozen inside. Oh well, George decided to try to bowl anyway. But Jumpy kept trying to break his breakfast out of the ice. George had an idea. He broke the ice into pieces so Jumpy could find the nuts. Test it out. You can freeze objects in water too. All you need is a freezer-safe plastic container and a variety of objects. Fill the container with water and then add berries or small pieces of fruit. Place the full container in the freezer for a couple of hours and then remove your giant ice cube. Be sure to take note if the fruits you put in sank to the bottom or stayed near the top of the ice. Are the ones that sank heavier or lighter than the ones that float near the top? Later that day, something amazing happened. George thought he saw something outside his window. When he went to look, it was snowing. George thought that it was cold enough to snow. It might be cold enough for water to freeze again and cold enough to make a new ice bowling set. Maybe the cold could be fun after all. George realized that winter, spring, summer, and fall were all great in their own way, but the pool could wait until summer. Right now, he had winter toys to play with and a whole chilly season to enjoy.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to Storytime with Sonia Panda to listen to more stories with me. Take care, friends.